Hello and welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock alongside John Ramdeen and Robin Black. And no, we do not have a new set. We are in Montreal, Quebec, getting set for UFC 186 on Saturday night. And what a slow news week. What are we even going to talk about, guys? We've got Quinton Jackson to talk about. The on again, off again fight is now on again, at least tentatively. A judge has overruled the injunction that Bellator had filed. And as of right now, Quinton Jackson is en route to Montreal, and he is tentatively, and I say that word tentatively, scheduled to fight Fabio Maldonado Saturday night.
Now, word is we will find out on Friday from Bosse's people whether or not he will be involved in this fight card at the Bell Center on Saturday night. But it looks like Quinton Jackson will be involved as of right now. And I think from a casual fan standpoint, I think they like this. They've seen Rampage before. He's a former champion. And this card has taken so many hits. And I know a lot of people said they weren't coming to the show because of the lack of star power. So I think just all the storylines that are surrounding this UFC 186 card, I think it's one of the more interesting stories involving a card or surrounding a card in quite some time, and I think it's one we're going to remember because I think when people leave the Bell Center on Saturday, I think they're going to be treated to a show.
Yeah, the weird thing is, if you really look at the meat of some of these fights, you've got killer action matchups. I mean, killer striking matchups. John Makdessi versus Shane Campbell, who most people don't know, that's a great matchup. But star power sells pay-per-view. Star power attracts people's attention in our busy world, and so they don't necessarily have a way to do that with guys that people don't know. And suddenly, everybody's talking about the fact that Rampage Jackson's back on the card. But it is important to note, Tuesday night they announced, yes, all that legal mumbo-jumbo is done. He's back on the card. Well, there's a very good likelihood there's still more legal mumbo-jumbo to come. It could be as late as Friday. You never know. Steve Bosse is still training, and he's still being in shape and being ready to be on weight now, probably at 215 if that were to happen, just in case that all goes down.
Yeah, we should mention that Bellator did release a statement to us at the Fight Network, and essentially they're reviewing their options. They were disappointed with this ruling that comes just a couple days out from UFC 186, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. They're going to try to appeal this and potentially put up a barrier to prevent Quinton from fighting.
And just have to think objectively. If you were the promoter of Bellator, you or myself, I think we would all do this. We would try to stop Rampage from competing on this card, considering the fact he's a star and you want him for your organization. And if you can damage the competition in the process, why not do it?
Yeah, I mean, the business wars that exist in every corporate structure involves this little subset of legal battles, and that's part of 2015. It's weird and creepy, but it's true. But, I'm telling you, honestly, if you ask me directly my opinion, I would rather see Steve Bosse fight in this card. Steve Bosse has unbelievable potential. He's a crazy action fighter. He's great in the pocket, and in Quebec, he's a big star. Arguably, he has more impact on this card locally than Rampage Jackson does, in my opinion. I'm a Rampage Jackson fan. I think we all understand what a star he is. But here in Quebec, I'd kind of rather see Steve Bosse in this fight.
Well, and Stefan Petrie, I mean, he was on the MMA Hour this week stating that, Bosse is going to mean a couple extra 1,000 tickets sold, which, if true, that's a big addition to this card. And the viewer at home who's not from Montreal has never heard of Steve Bosse. It's a no-brainer. Oh, you do Fabio Maldonado, Quinton Jackson. But you bring up that point where Steve Bosse, he might get a future UFC fight, but he is most valuable to the Montreal market.
And you also get the element, they're weighing it. 2,000 seats sold in Quebec or 20,000 pay-per-views sold. The math says you go with the pay-per-view star. Rampage Jackson's a proven star.
What do you like about this new fight, and also taking place at a 215-pound catchweight bout? So Quinton has stated he has been training for this, but obviously not enough that he's going to be making 205.
Yeah, I think we all know what type of fight we're going to get. If it is Quinton Jackson and Maldonado, especially if it's at 215 pounds, Rampage hasn't had to drain himself. He's made no... He's been very vocal about the fact that he doesn't enjoy training mixed martial arts. He does this to make some money, to be a star, and I think this fight at 215 pounds will be just as fan-friendly as if it was at 205
And let's
pounds.
also not forget the size disparity that we saw when Maldonado went up to fight Stipe Miocic at heavyweight. I mean, it's a 215-pound catchweight bout. What is Quinton going to weigh come fight time on Saturday night? He could be well over 235, 240.
For sure. And the size, the weight taking place at 215 favors Jackson until it gets minutes later in the fight if it means that he didn't train as hard. Fabio Maldonado is the most courageous fighter that exists on planet Earth. We've all seen how he fights. If you haven't, go check it out. The guy fights with such an incredible courage. If this goes into round 2 and round 3, bet your money on Fabio Maldonado. Also, if you want to slow down a guy who maybe is a little overweight, maybe hasn't quite been training, what's a good way to do it? Drill him to the body. Maldonado has great body shots, so he is very much in this fight. This isn't like a showcase of Rampage Jackson. This is a good fight.
You guys have had a chance to talk with numerous fighters up and down the card. Who have been some of the fighters that have stood out that you kind of have taken a bit of a closer look at going into Saturday?
One of the guys, John Makdessi, because we've called his fights before he went into the UFC, and just to see his growth and see where his mind is and what his goals are for mixed martial arts. Pretty interesting because he's a true martial artist, and he says he has not been able to really showcase the abilities that he's been acquiring since he's been 6 years old. And he said once he does eventually put forth the type of performance he'll be happy with, he said the world will be blown.
Yeah, and if technique and how the sport works is your thing, and you start analyzing the sport, the first thing you analyze is the techniques. Then later you get curious about the coaches, and after you start see the big picture, it's all about the mind. That's what it really ends up being. And John Makdessi's mind right now, very super hyper focused. He sounds like the kind of guy who's right on the edge of being a cult leader, but also a very dangerous man. And you take him and Ollie Mercier, and you take Chad Laprise, and those 3 155-pounders have all been training together, preparing together, and peaking together in the same gym. So that is a very interesting 3 fights.
And it's also the fact that we've called a lot of these guys their careers before they went to the UFC, and just to get to see them achieve greatness is pretty exciting.
All right, well, it's all coming up Saturday night, UFC 186. We have tons of coverage coming your way, so keep it locked on Fight Network, fightnetwork.com. We're going to have the weigh-ins on Friday, live preview show happening Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to leave you with what's going on in and around Montreal this week.
Come join me tonight? Oh, shit. What is this?
Rory McDonald just told us the other day that he thinks that foot stomps and head kicks are more pure in combat.
He allows soccer kicks and stomps. He's a martial artist who is the UFC champion. I know a lot of people bitch about Rampage and his situation with his cake, but he always talks about Pride, how it was more designed for fighters, opposed to the rules of the UFC where it allows athletes
Nick
to just
Diaz, Nick Diaz says that everybody's just looking to round the win, and you can't do that. You guys coming? Why are you guys not coming?